Hello guys, I am the bear and today I present to you what if Jon Snow was raised in secret to be king of the 7 kingdoms. Please like and subscribe for more videos. Enjoy. Before it starts, I want you to know that I don't own the story or Game of Thrones. If I did, maybe it would have ended with another king on the throne.
Khaleesi, the title felt like nothing to Dany. She was the mother of dragons after all. But the Dothraki horde venerated her like a divinity. Viserys was happy with her sudden coronation. He thought that the Dothraki would fight for him now. A foolish thought. They were pledged to Dany and her dragons now. If we want to take back our family throne, we need a fleet. Her mother said. Dany noticed how she looked at her with pride. It's your decision, Dany. Dany looked at the map. The free cities would never help her with a Dothraki horde following her, but then she looked at the Slavers' Bay, 3 of the wealthiest cities in Essos. It was a long road. We need those ships, and I need more soldiers. The dragons have to grow before we get to Westeros, she thought. Suddenly a shiver ran down her spine. A screech sounded in her head, distracting her from all their planning. It wasn't the screech of one of her children, it was a lonely screech. It sounded like a call for help that made Dany shudder. But the voice of her mother, arguing with Viserys, made her come back and focus on the map. We should sail from here. Illyrio can give us his ships. Viserys said. He became more impertinent after Khal Drogo's death. You're a fool if you think that we can take this horde across the narrow sea with only 3 ships. Her mother answered back. We need more than that. We should travel to Slavers' Bay. The masters can give us ships if we gather enough gold. She added. We don't have gold. How can we get it? Dany asked. We have a Dothraki horde. We should attack a few cities and take some prisoners, then we can sell them as slaves to the masters. Viserys responded. He didn't show a sign of regret after saying that. Or we can exchange you again for a fleet, sweet sister, he said with a wicked tone. Your foolish plan didn't give us an army, brother. Have you considered that maybe you're not the best making treats? Dany said with an annoyed tone. She would never forget that her own brother sold her like a brute mare to Khal Drogo. Hear my words, brother. If you dare to offer me or our mother to anyone, I will cut your hands. Dany's amethyst eyes were brighter after the eggs hatched. She threw knives to Viserys with her gaze. Do you want to wake the dragon, little sister? He grabbed Dany's arm and squeezed it with all his strength. Dany felt the pain traveling through her body for a second, but Ricardo, one of her new blood riders, and serie pushed him away from her and took him by his arms. You forget where we are now, brother, she said with pure anger bathing her words. Touch me again, and you'll miss your hand. She knew that threatening Viserys was the only way to stop him from hurting her and her mother. At the eyes of the knights protecting them, he was now a mere lizard, the shadow of a dragon. I'm a Khaleesi now. I'm the mother of dragons. I don't plan to sell my mother or myself to get a fleet, neither I plan to sell slaves to the masters. She saw how her brother's face changed suddenly. The dragon inside her woke up the day she walked out of the fire with her children. Viserys understood immediately that he had no power or influence now. Dany made him see the awful truth. He was just a beggar king who didn't accomplish anything in his life. Viserys remained silent for the rest of the meeting, his gaze directed to the ground. Khaleesi, if you plan to take the 7 kingdoms, you'll need trained soldiers, serie said. The old knight started to show a sudden devotion to Dany. The best soldiers that you can find are in Astapor. Why don't we just pay to the Golden Company or another mercenary company? Ser Oswell interjected. They surely will fight for us now that we have dragons. The dragons aren't gold, and they surely don't shit gold. Ser Gerald replied. The loyalty of a Selward remains where gold remains, and we don't have too much, the old knight added. But if you go to Astapor, like serie said, we can buy some unsullied. They are the best soldiers in Essos. Dany felt disgusted by the idea of buying an army of slaves. The mere idea of slavery made her feel sick, but she needed more than cavalry to take the 7 kingdoms, and the Unsullied were the only army capable of stopping the Dothraki. We should offer the masters our treasures in exchange for some Unsullied. It isn't much, but maybe we can ask for a loan to the Iron Bank. The Iran Bank of Bravos was a despiteful organization, created long ago by freed slaves, but its fortune was based in supporting slavery in the continent. Khaleesi, we could visit the free cities, they always pay tribute to the Dothraki, nobody wants to fight them in the field. It is known. Irri said, she was one of her maidens, but her words made sense for Dany. It is known, Khaleesi, what Irri says is true. Jiki said. Nobody would deny a tribute to you, Khaleesi, and your dragons will make them fear you. Dany heard all the advices. It was a hard situation, but her maiden's words made a lot of sense for her. The Dothraki were feared in Essos, a Dothraki horde of 40,000 men and 3 dragons were even scarier for the masters of the free cities. Besides Bravos, the closest city was Myr. Back in the disputed lands, she thought, remembering that day when Viserys was disposed to sell her for the Golden Company. But Myr wasn't the only city in the disputed lands. The king of Yermak was famous for making war against his neighbor cities. Slavery was forbidden in Yermak and it was surrounded by slaver cities. Jorah Mormont. Daenerys Targaryen was a truly Valyrian queen. The way she commanded her people made Jorah feel like a younger man. There was something in her white silver hair and her amethyst eyes that drove him crazy, but the promise made by the spider was his way to return home. He despised Essos, it only brought him memories of his wife leaving him for another mercenary. Lord Varys offered him a pardon signed by the king. He only asked for information about the remaining Targaryens, a simple task with a big reward. I suppose that you are trying to get your honor back, Mormont. Ser Gerald Hightower said while he was approaching. I thought that you were feeling comfortable among slavers. The memory of his fallen disgrace made his blood boil. He tried to sell a couple of poachers to a slaver, but Eddard Stark heard about his plans and forced him to flee from Westeros. I'm surprised that the man who swore to protect a Targaryen king ended serving to the usurper's dog. Jorah replied bitterly. Ser Gerald gave out a loud laugh. You're a fool if you think that I was serving Lord Stark all those years ago. The former commander of the King's Guard replied mockingly, I was protecting our true king. The old man took a deep breath as resignation started to bathe his face. But we got information about Queen Rhaella's location in Bravos. We arrived just in time to save her and the children from the usurper's assassins. Jorah remained silent for a moment. Our true king, he thought. It had no sense for him. Viserys was the last living son of Aerys, but then he remembered a small chat he heard a few days ago between Daenerys and Rhaella. They were talking about a long-gone grandson. He felt embarrassed. You were protecting Rhaegar's son right under the usurper's nose, he said, astonished. We were protecting Prince Aemon, but the boy got the pox. Last time I talked with the maester, the man said that the fever would take his life. During that night, I left my best man taking care of the boy's burial. Ser Gerald said, it was evident that the memory of his lost king tormented him. But here we are now, away from home and serving the Targaryens. My father would kill me if he could see me. I dishonored my house for a woman. Jorah said. The old bear abdicated his seat in favor of him. He couldn't recall the old man's face. The thought filled his soul with sadness every night. I bet he would. Ser Gerald chuckled. Here we are, serving to a mad king and the mother of dragons, trying to find a way to gather some gold in front of a Dothraki horde. The old man laughed. Maybe we will get out of the disputed lands with a few mercenary companies at our backs and some carriages with gold. Maybe you were a fool in the past, but your idea of buying the Unsullied is our best chance to get some real soldiers in these bloody lands. The words of Ser Gerald made him smile. His father used to talk to him in the same way. But there wasn't too much time to think about his past life. It was a long road to the disputed lands, and Viserys wasn't the most patient person in the world. He swore to himself that he would kill Viserys if he dared to sell Daenerys again. He climbed up his destrier and rode to the front of the caravan. 3 weeks later. Daenerys Targaryen. The disputed lands were a recent war zone. As always, the city of Yermak was fighting a triple alliance between the cities of Myr, Tyrosh and Lys. It was the perfect moment for Dany and her Khalasar. Yermak was resisting the multiple attacks and the other cities were exposed to a foreign attack. The masters of Myr, Tyrosh and Lys offered them 5 wagons full of gold. It was exactly what they were looking for. Now they had enough gold to buy an army of Unsullied. Everything goes as I planned, she thought. It was a long road towards Astapor, but the presence of her mother and her children made the journey more tolerable. Everything going as you planned? Her mother asked. She was one of the few people who knew about her plan. Yes, mother, once we buy those unsullied, we will take the Slavers' Bay and we will build our ships there. She said, after seeing what I have seen, I don't plan to leave these lands if the slavers are still in control. She thought about Illyrio Mopatus and Khal Drogo. Those men made fortunes selling people to the masters. If she was disposed to let them keep practicing slavery, she was no better than those men. And what will we do with your brother? Her mother asked. She was a victim of her brother's madness. Dany always heard her mother's screams in the middle of the night. Viserys' behavior made her remember her late husband. Sooner or later, he has to accept that he's not in charge anymore. Dany's face hardened with the memories of her brother's abuses, and if he doesn't want to understand it, I'll cast him away. She was speaking and acting like a true queen, not like a queen, like a Khaleesi. The Dothraki only followed the stronger of all. She needed to be stronger. There was no place for the weak little girl that was offered to one of the captains of the Golden Company. If I look back, I am lost. She thought. Do you remember home? Dany asked to her mother, her eyes shining like the stars. I don't have good memories about Westeros, my dear. Riella looked down, trying to hide a lonely tear rolling down her cheek. You and your brother have always been my home. Nothing compares to you or Viserys, even if he's the living copy of your father. Dany felt her heart clench after hearing Riella's words. Dany made a signal and Irri brought 2 goblets with wine. We should make a toast then. She raised her goblet. For our family, she said. Riella raised her goblet too. For our home. After making the toast, Dany invited her maidens too. They were teaching her how to speak Dothraki and were from the same age than her. They drank until they felt it was enough. Riella slept with Dany that night, just like they used to when they were living in Bravos. For a moment Dany felt peace after becoming a Khaleesi and the mother of dragons. Before sleeping, her children cuddled around her and Riella. Have you named them yet? Riella asked. The black one looks just like Balerion. And that shall be his name. Dany said, nodding to her mother. The green one shall be Regal, for my brother Rhaegar, who died valiantly on the green banks of the Trident. Dany said, proud. She knew that Riella remembered her firstborn son every day. And what about the cream and gold one? Riella asked again. I can't name him, mother. Only his writer can name him. She said, smiling at her mother. And who's his writer, my dear? Riella asked naively, making Dany laugh. That's your duty, mother, because you shall be his writer. Dany replied between laughs. Dany saw the tears taking form in Riella's eyes, making her cry too. Riella took a deep breath. Then he shall be Vhagar, and just like his ancestor, he will conquer the 7 kingdoms. We haven't named them. Maybe with the time we will feel what they feel, but I feel like one of them is missing. Dany said, the feeling started a few weeks ago during the council. You must be calm, they are all here with us. Riella responded. Now we better get some sleep. We have a long journey ahead, Khaleesi. She said with a proud tone. Dany nodded and closed her eyes. During the night she woke up and went out of the tent, but when she made her way out, she was in a different room, with only a bed and a hearth. Dany walked forward and saw a young man sleeping on the bed with bandages around his left arm. He was breathing heavily. Suddenly all her senses focused in a little creature sitting over the young man's legs. She looked closer and saw a small white-red dragon looking directly at her. Its red eyes were like blood and made Dany shiver. Then the little dragon screeched,